Welcome everybody to this third lecture on Python. In this lecture we will study the program flow control. In particular, we will first study if-else statement, the else-if statement, then we move to the loops, the while and for loops. Finally, we will study the comprehensions, which are shorter ways to execute loops, and we will conclude this lecture. If-else statement. What are if-else statements? Well, a breaching statement, is just another way to call if-else statement, is in a way to control our code. So you split your code in sections and you execute a particular section if certain conditions are met. A basic example is the following. Like you have the if, the condition, the logical expressions, and then the code that you want to execute if the expression is satisfied, the condition is satisfied. Sometimes you want to have also an else statement then, which basically work in this way. If your condition satisfies, you then enter the first code block. If the condition is not satisfied, then you move to the inside the else code block. Okay, it is important to remember that that Python gives the same level of indentation of every line of code within a conditional statement. So the indentation is fundamentals. If you write the code block, you start to write the code block at the same indentations of the if, then it will be not inside the condition, the if statement. Same for the else, and so on. Okay, let's look an example. I've created a files. Okay, then let's create our script files if then else.py. Let's write our examples. Let's say, okay, if statement check. We want to check, for example, that we have even numbers. So let's put at the start of the files the meaning of these files. As input, we're going to have a number. This is going to be a float number. Okay, I'm a little bit slow to write, sorry to write. Okay, let's start to write our if statement. Okay, text. Let's call the input. The input is going to be the number. We want to ask a number. Okay, perfect. Then we want to change the type of the text variables into a float integer. It goes to work as a float, but let's do with integer. Then let's write a comment called, which is okay. Now we want to check if it's an even number. So number percentage, then 2 double equal 0. So no residuals from the division with 2. Then if that's true, we want to say okay, then it's an even number. If it is not true, so else, then we was okay, then the number is an odd number. Yeah, odd number. Okay, that's great. And as finals, we want to, after complete everything, let's just write, oh, that was fun. It was a fun program. Okay, yeah, it was. Let's now open the terminal. Yeah, let's open the terminals, everything correct. Let's use Python if then else .py. So we are calling our script. number, which number? I don't know, let's say a number random. Yeah, the number is even. Okay, let's do, I don't know, again, let's go again the files. What number do we want? Odd number, 3. Yeah, is an odd number. That's it. It was quite easy. Okay, this was our structure of examples with different number, but it's still worth working. Okay, elif and else statement. Sometimes you want to have a nested branch statement, so we are going to use the if elif else statement. It works in the same way to have if else, and else again. So in this case, to have a more comfortable way, we just write if the condition, the code block, elif condition, the code block, and else if all of the two above were false. Okay, let's see an example. Okay, let's start. I already create a file that in this case I call intro.py. Let's try to have an example in which we want to choose our thermostat. Since we are in the summer, we want to know what to do. That it tells us if to change to AC or heat pump and so on, or to love. Okay, so let's first call the input. So let's call the temperature float input temperature, which temperature we are in it now. And then, okay, to ask for the desired temperature now, which is our preferred temperature that we want. Again, we want to have a float variables input because we want to ask the user for the desired temperature. Yes, let's write. Then, okay, let's start to write our if-else statement. If the temperature is less or equal, we can also just say less, it doesn't change, but let's keep less or equal. Then in design temperatures, -5, I don't know, we can put wherever you want, let's just say -5. Then, okay, the status of our heat pump should be heat because it's too cold for us. elif is if the temperature is greater or equal of the temperature +5, so maybe it's too hot for us. Let's just write status equal AC. Else, if everything else of that, then just turn off our if like we don't need anything. Just let's not waste electricity. Okay, then print the status variables. Then we run on the terminals. So let's call the files python intro.py. Temperature, I don't know, let's say 25. Desired temperature, let's say 20. 28, yeah, AC is too hot. Again, let's go again. The files. Let's say this time is 25, temperature really hot, and our desired temperature is not 24 no because it will be again AC. Let's say a little bit high this time, 30. So yeah, no need to change and so on. So it works. It works perfectly. Okay, this is our example with on the right side. Instead to use the Python interpreter, we are using the IPython console. But the meaning out besides that is the same. That's perfect. Okay, it is written using our functions that we will learn in the next videos. But yeah, I just wanted to put it out there. Okay, for loop. A for loop is basically a set of instruction that is repeated for every time we are inside of a sequence. So for example, if we write for E, I usually use E in range n or range 10, let me make it easier. Then we are running the loop from the value E equal to 0 to the value 9, because the sequence range 10 is from 0 to 9. And we are running the code block inside. Indentation is really important. Please be careful. Okay, so let's have a simple example. Let's have a variable L. Let's give value 1, 2, 3, basic. And then another variables we call M, and with value 4, 5, and 6. Both of them, remember, they are list. Okay? Then let's write our first statement. So for lm instead of if, but the idea is the same in zip lm. So we are attaching the two lists together. Print the element, so the value that we are in it. So the first one is going to be the first point the list, so 1 and 4. On the second iteration is 2 and 5. And on the third is 3 and 6. So this should be made clear to you how the for loops work. Now, while loops. While loops work in a similar way than for loop. But instead to be inside of a string or a list or wherever, is you continue to iterate your code block until the logic expression associated with the while loop is true. So the while loop has the following structure: while, logical expression, and then the code block to be repeated. Let's have an example. An example would be to compute the square root of 2. So, okay, first let's have a tolerance. Let's have a tolerance of 1 at the minus 15. At the 1 10 powers of minus 15, sorry. Then I have a lower bound, that's 0, an upper bound, let's say 2, to make it easier. Then, okay, let's have an uncertainty. Sorry, that is lazy as well. Sometimes I mistake the words, which is upper minus lower. Then let's write our while loop. So while the uncertainty is greater than the tolerance, then we want to stay inside the loop. So, and we want to compute the middles of that points. So lower plus upper divided by 2. Then, okay, let's use an if statement now. If the middles at the power 2 is less than 2, then the lower is going to be equal to the middles, else the upper is going to be equal to the middles. It's just we are setting the boundaries for our intervals, basically. Then print our two results, like the lower and upper of the intervals. As the while loops is iterate, we're going to have closer interval and more precise to our point. Then just change the uncertainty again. Okay, let's call our files that Python sqrt1.py. Okay, see, we have all the result, and as the last line is really close, like the 2 points are really, the lower bound and the upper bound are really close to the two values of the square root of 2. Yeah, I think it's quite clear. Let's go ahead. Okay, yeah, we have again. So what we did, we basically set a tolerance for our errors. We set a lower and upper bound. Upper bound is 2 because we don't want to be greater than 2. And then essentially so the error basically between the upper and lower bounds. And then, yeah, we just did what we did before. Yeah, we can go ahead. What are the comprehensions? Well, the comprehensions are a way to create, to run loops, and to create lists by running loops. So on the left side, we have create an empty list. So y equal the square brackets. Then we write our for loop. So for I in the range 5. So from 0 to 4, we want to append to y the square of the point. And then we print pi. On the right side, instead, we can have, by using comprehensions, is a more complex way, but the meaning is the same. So basically you write at first what is your command that you want to do, your code, basically. And then you put the for loop. And yeah, the result is the same. Okay, as a summing up, we did if statement in which we have if the condition that needs to be satisfied, the code block. Remember, really important, indentations is really important because if you write the code block at the same level of the if is not going to be inside the if statement. Okay, there is a mistake over there. The else should be at the same level of if. So yeah, that's a mistake. Also for the if else conditions, they should be at the same level. Sorry. Anyway, yeah, if condition loops. For loops, yeah, we have for and while loops. The for loops, we have the looping variable. I usually use e or a more clear variable for the point. Okay, then if this sequence we are considering, sometimes you use range or you make directly a list. It depends on what you need to code. Then while loops. While loops work with logical expression. So you are inside, you iterate your code while the logic expression is true. Note that you can also use counter opposite, so you start with a false statement and you stay inside when the false statement remains false and you got outside when the false statement became true. And yeah, that's it. I will say thank you for watching these videos. I hope to see you to the next lecture. Bye. This is the reference I forgot. Bye bye.